Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is Michael Anfield at weareinterconnected.com. Don't forget that if you have companion animals, cats, dogs, or just about any other animal, you can get Evolution Diet Pet Food, the most complete nutrition for your companion animals. That's Evolution Diet Pet Food. Visit them online at petfoodshop.com. That's petfoodshop.com. Okay, so this video is about feathers, and I tried in the past creating the video about feathers and vegans or non-vegans using feathers. Okay, and this time hopefully it's going to be good so I can upload it to YouTube. Okay, so people have this notion that we are able to use anything that comes from animals. And the problem with using feathers, even if it's feathers that you found in a park somewhere or in a beach somewhere, a good feather that just fell off an animal, and we're going to use it. It's in nature, the feather just there, lying on the ground, and we're going to use it. So there are many problems with using animals, even if we did not actually abuse the animals or use the animals at all. Now, the thing is that when we are wearing feathers, if it's in our hair or for decoration on our mantelpiece or whatever it is, it sends a message to people that we're able to use animals, we're able to use their products, anything that comes from them. Now, people, just by looking at someone, people don't know if they actually had to force the animal to the ground or to pluck the feather off the animal in order to obtain that feather, or if they just found it somewhere on the beach. So they don't know that. Just like they don't know if you've rescued the animal. If let's say you're taking your dog for a walk, people don't know if you rescued that animal or if you bought the animal from a pet shop. Nobody really knows that unless you tell them. So it really sends a negative message that we're able to still use animals. We're able to still see them as property. So that is the problem here. Animals, non-human animals, are not property. They're not things to be used. They're not nothing from them. Their feathers, their eggs, their milk, their cheese, their honey, whatever it is not for us to use. Now, some people say, well, didn't harm the animal and it's just there. And it's like, pretend you had something that fell off of you. I mean, you probably wouldn't care because you would consent to it. It's not part of me, so who cares, But it still sends a message that we have the right, that humans have the right to dominate other living beings, to see them as nothing but property. So I think this is the key problem. Not only that we live in a herding culture, but we see other beings, non-human animals, as property, as things to be used. And once we do that, then we're starting to see that we're used like property. We're slaves and used like property, and our things are used. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of our body parts that are used for medical and pharmaceutical industries, and it's because we're the core reason that our things are being used in medications and pharmaceutical industry is because we're doing the same thing to non-human animals. People can't relate that because they think we're separate. Because in our world, we see everything as separate. We see everything as different, as separate. We see non-human animals as separate from us. We see, the environment as separate from us. But ultimately, we're energetically interconnected or entangled, as science likes to put it. So the scientific term is entanglement, or the way I like to say it is interconnectedness. And some people like to say oneness. But oneness is really is not really a good term because people use it and they often don't include nature and they don't often include non-human animals. But when you say oneness, that is actually includes everyone. One. Or if you think about it, universe is all rolled into one. So the universe is everything, including us, including non-human animals, including nature, everything that has energy, dead or alive, is included in universe. So when we start to use anything that comes from animals, people, of course, we can tell every single person, we can tell them, oh, I got this just from a beach and I'm not, I didn't use, but still it sends a wrong message that we're able to use things that comes from animals. No matter if we tell every single person that sees us wearing a feather or whatever, maybe, we see the animals as property. People still see it as, oh, okay, we were able to use it. We're able to use that kind of, right? We're able to use it. Now, the problem is people don't have this understanding of interconnectedness. Not only are we all interconnected, they think anything that comes from a plant and anything that comes from an animal is the same thing. So if we're eating an animal or an animal product and we're eating a plant product, it's exactly the same thing. And in my book, Return to the Gentle Sea, for the Love That Lives in Everyone, I actually argue it's not the same thing at all. It's not the same thing because animals, we know, are sentient beings. We know they have a central nervous system. We know they feel some kind of discomfort when they're harmed. Now, we don't know that for sure for plant. But in any case, we still must live as lightly as we possibly can on the earth, which means that fruit is ultimately the best food to possibly eat. Because ultimately and fruit means the flesh around the seed of a plant. So anything that has or once had a seed is a fruit. So even pumpkins and squashes and even zucchini and even cucumbers, these are all fruit. Tomatoes are fruits as well because they have a seed, surrounded by flesh. And so when we start to realize that, for example, if we were in nature, I'm not talking about in these unnatural cities and society where we poop down in the toilet and it flushes into who knows where. I'm talking about when we are actually working in symbiosis with the earth and we excrete our food. We do a bowel movement in nature. The seeds, if we have swallowed some seeds, go back right into nature. So it replants or just decomposes into the ground. So it's a symbiotic relationship. But when we are eating other kinds of plants or animals, there's no symbiotic relationship. Basically, the plant and the animal's dead. That's it. There's no way for the plant or the animal to reproduce. There isn't. Because we've killed that life off. Now, again, if we're comparing root vegetables, for example, where we pull out the potato or the carrot compared to the animal, still, even when we're pulling out the root vegetable, it's still more ethical than if we are killing the animal. Because we all know deep in our hearts, children know, even adults, though we lost a lot of that knowing and that compassion, we know that when we stab an animal or when we steal from an animal, it's not a good thing to do. We all know this. But when we pull out a carrot, we know that this is not the same thing as stealing from an animal or taking their lives. We know that this is not the same thing. I mean, maybe there is some type of feeling there when we're cutting a plant, but it's not the same moral and ethical implication as if we would harm an animal, a non-human animal. So going back to this, taking any kind of life or anything from an animal. So another example would be seashells. So the thing is that animals have once used a shell. And in the past, even as a vegan, I would be like, wow, this is, I would love to have a shell, lying, sitting on my drawer, desk, or wherever, like in my house. I would love to have one. But then I realized that that was once an animal's home. And yeah, so, but even rocks at the same time, uh, sometimes animals' homes are rocks. So are we going to keep rocks in our home, or is it ethical to keep rocks in our home? So that's another subject where it's up to the individual. Because if you really think about it, does it harm the animal at all? Does it make a statement to another person that that animal or that animal product or that animal, I don't even like calling it product or food, but that animal that came from an animal, that thing that came from an animal, basically, and it's not even a thing either, but that item, that whatever came from the animal, does it send a message to someone else that animals are property? When we have something that's made out of feathers, like a hat made out of feathers, does it send a message that we're able to use whatever comes from animals? If we have a rock on, a beautiful rock that we found in a beach in our home on our drawer, does it send a message that animals are here for our use? And the answer is, when it comes to rocks, no, because rocks are just rocks. When it comes to feathers, yes, it sends a message that we're able to use feathers, and it's okay to use feathers. And people don't realize where the feathers come from. They'll buy a down-filled pillow or down-filled jacket, and these animals are like one of the most abused. And we can also realize that for example, if we have a seashell in our home, for example, is that sending a message that animals are property? And the seashell, it may. That's a really tricky one to analyze, because it was an animal's home, a crab or a snail or whatever. So any kind of seashell or maybe a snail shell, it sends a message that, okay, we're able to use these, whatever comes from the animal. So there's sometimes really difficult situations, and I talk about it in my book, Return to the Gentle Sea, for the love that lives in everyone, that we have to do the best that we can, and we have to analyze the situation the best as we can. And to understand, does it send a message to other people that animals are property, that whatever comes from animals is for us to use, or does it not? And how best can we take care of animals that we already have in our care? If we live in a city, for example, is living in a city the most ethical thing to do? When we start to understand that the tropical climate and tropical areas are actually the most ethical and environmental, and also the most healthiest way and place to live. And also, not only for that, but because we can grow our food all year round, that is actually the best place to live in. Now, people will argue, oh, not everybody's going to go, live in the tropics. Of course not. It's just ridiculous. But technically, if we spread ourselves out throughout the tropics, every single person could technically live in these areas and it wouldn't be crowded at all. There's so much land and so much. The problem is that animal agriculture is taking a lot of the land. So if we stop animal agriculture, we can all go live in, small net communities out in nature in the tropical areas of the world. So I hope you learned something from this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it around with everyone that you think would find this useful. If you know somebody that wears feathers or continues to eat animals, please share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and to give the little thumb, click that little bell icon, the little bell icon beside subscribe. Click on that, and then you'll be able to subscribe to all my videos or just some of them, and it will come into your email, so you get notifications in your email. And also don't forget to subscribe to my email newsletter. All the links are down below, so check that out. And also don't forget that I love you because you are an amazing being, and check out my books because I know you would love to learn more about this in detail, especially my book, Return to the Gentle Sea for the Love That Lives in Everyone. And I think that's about it, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.